On today's episode, I'm going to share with you how I was gaslighted by a sweet old lady and a government official after I hit this music. Joining me for the second time is educator and owner of Includeduction, Mr. James. Mr. James, thank you for coming on my podcast again.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Tim, for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, so I figure you'd be a good person to talk about on this subject. It's not going to be all about gaslighting. I kind of want to know why people are turning to homeschool rather than, keeping their kids in the public education system here. But before we get into that, I want to show you my story of being gaslit because honestly, I didn't know what gaslighting really meant. And if you're not for sure what gaslighting means, it means using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. So I just learned that like a couple of weeks ago. And this happened to me about a few months ago, so it wasn't recent. But ever since I made my announcement for running for school board, you get all sorts of messages, emails. Some are good, some are just people who straight up don't want you to run. and I'm guessing this is one of those stories. So a while back, Mr. James, I put a post out on Facebook, and it was about an issue my daughter was having at school. And I wanted to know if it was happening to anybody else. And sure enough, it wasn't just happening in our school district, it was happening all over the state. So that made me feel a bit better, like, okay, this is not a district issue, this is a state issue. The state's got to deal with this. So I honestly forgot about it. 2 weeks later, it was a Sunday afternoon. I'm sitting down holding Tori, who's like, at that time, 8 months old. We're watching cartoons, keeping her entertained, however. I get this message from this lady. She goes, "Hey, did you ever figure out what happened with your daughter's issue?" I'm like, who is this on a Sunday evening? And I said, no. She goes, "Well, did you talk to the school about it?" And I said, no. And I can't remember. I said I was going to go deal with it, but it wasn't a big issue. She goes, actually, I got back up a bit. Before I asked her again, I had to look up who this lady was. I didn't know who is texting me. And that's how I found out some sweet old lady. So I was like, okay, it's some sweet old lady. She must be concerned. I don't know. And honestly, I don't know where she saw this message, this post I made, because usually my personal Facebook profile is locked. So I don't know if it got shared or whatnot. I don't know how people saw it, but somehow she saw it. So I looked up this sweet old lady, and it turns out she works for the school system in my town. So I'm like, okay. So follow up with her question. She asked me if I had talked to the school about it. I go, well, don't you work for the school? And she goes, oh, I do. In fact, I will talk to the principal for you and we'll get this issue resolved. And I was like, that is very nice of you. Thank you so much for that. Because now that's one less thing I have to deal with. And honestly, Mr. James, I wasn't concerned about this issue. It's a statewide issue anyways. I don't really care right now. And plus, this is like 2 weeks old post that she's referring to in present time.
Right. Okay.
So later on that evening, I go to my work because I had to upload a YouTube video. And if you're familiar with ad spend in YouTube, you have to go into you get the certain Facebook page that's hidden if you're not doing ads. And I had some notifications pop up that I never saw that day. And one was like a few hours old. And it was a lady who I just got done speaking to, blasting me on social media, saying that I don't do my research and I should research things thoroughly before I go post things publicly on the internet. And I was so upset because first of all, she looks really nice on Facebook, like a sweet old grandma. Like you would not think a minute that she would do something like this to you. She ran my name to the dirt, and she had to use Tim Flynn from Educator School Board to do it with too, as well. So I don't know what the purpose of that was. So I was upset. So I could have probably handled the situation better. I could have just said, well, that's not the conversation we had earlier. But I full blown said, why is this my issue? If this is an issue that you guys knew about since the beginning of the school year, but why is it my issue that I have to do the research and look into this problem at the end of the school year? And then I screenshot all the text messages that she sent to me saying, because we had a nice conversation about this. And I shared those screenshots thinking that, maybe she'll pull this post down. If she pulls this post down, it will all go away. No, this person was this person was in the right, I was in the wrong. And then a few people told other people, not to me directly, told other people like, Tim's being very, disrespectful. You shouldn't be sharing posts between you and somebody else. But I'm like, but this post I shared between me and this sweet old lady was nothing but nice things. Thank you for handling the situation for me. I said something like, you're more than just this kind of person. People look up to you, blah, blah, blah. It was nothing but nice things. The goal is for her to take her post down. She didn't do it. So I had to go to somebody else that has a little bit of authority over her and explain my whole story, because there on social media is Tim Flynn from Educator School Board does not do research before he posts things. And I can't have that. I can't have that on there. So I explained the whole situation to this person, and this person saw it and he goes, well, okay, well, what do you want me to do about this? I go, simple, just delete it. Just have this person delete this stuff, because this is also representing your business as well. Delete
Right.
it. I don't care. So it came to be a Friday afternoon. It got deleted. And how I know that is because, well, one, the person told me it's going to happen on Friday, because this person is going to be out of the area for a few days. So it's going to happen on Friday. 3:15 on a Friday afternoon, I get this post from a government official. Now, I have to read it word for word here. He goes, Tim, I had the chance to see the exchange regarding the issue you had. I would respectfully suggest that the exchange with this person didn't show you in your best light, particularly if you're going to run on the anti-bullying platform. On the topic of this issue, were you able to connect with this person? I'm like, how am I in the wrong here? I made a comment. I made a post weeks ago. Someone ran my name. Someone told me they're going to take care of this issue for me weeks later. And then after we had a conversation, an hour later, she blasts my name on social media, run my name through the dirt. But I'm the bad guy. I'm the one who's running for school board and anti-bullying, shouldn't be sticking up for myself or taking care of this issue.
Right.
So that's my gaslighting story, because this person is trying to make me feel like it's my problem, it's my fault. I handled the situation very poorly, when this person could have just left. This person could have just talked to me on messaging, did what she said she was going to do, and leave it as that. Instead, she had to take that information I told her that I wasn't looking into it, and run my name on social media through the mud.
Right. That's well, a few things, because you posted a situation and she messaged you, well, because she said she was going to take care of this in her official capacity. So this was not a personal exchange between friends that you would expect if it was just a friend or a relative or something like, you would expect maybe expect an additional level of privacy in the conversation. She's talking in her official capacity as as this official with the school, that she's going to take care of this issue and talk to somebody about it. So I don't think sharing those conversations are inappropriate at all. And you only did so in defending yourself from an attack. Not It wasn't that you went on the attack. You just explained an issue you were having, kind of asked a question, and in the course of this, now she's attacking you, which showed a very different side than what she did when she was messaging you. I don't see a problem in you defending yourself. But then again, it does seem a little consistent sometimes with how things are handled within the school system.
Here's the thing: this person who did that has a level of power in our town. It was a spouse that has a level of power. Just It wasn't her spouse that came after me later. It was the person of equal power to her spouse that attacked me on this issue, saying it's all my fault. I shouldn't be talking like this. You're running as the anti-bullying platform. You shouldn't be having those conversations. I was like, for a minute, I literally thought like, okay, how is this happening to me? I'm an anti-bullying expert, and I didn't know what gaslighting was until I explained the situation to my wife, showed her the text messages, showed her everything. She goes, "That's gaslighting." I'm like, "What's gaslighting?" I had to Google it, and Google there's steps of gaslighting, especially for questioning your psychological reasoning. They did it step by step. These people must do it a lot. They did exactly how it's explained on Google what gaslighting is. And funny enough, about 2 weeks ago, I was at one of my committees that I'm a part of in town told me, "Tim, make sure you're careful on what you talk about because these people in our area, they have power that they don't want to give up. And they will, especially if you're a small business owner, they will do everything in their power to either ruin your business or get you to back out." And I was like, well, that would have been good information like about a month ago because they've already
Right.
started that. But it's true because I saw
Yeah.
screenshots. There's screenshots of them doing to other businesses in town. And I'm not going to share those screenshots. If you want to know what these screenshots look like, if you have an idea what I'm talking about, just do a Facebook, Google search. You might be able to find them, but I'm not going to share them. But they're out there. It's public information. So,
But that's true, and it happens everywhere too. I mean, quite frankly, even locally myself, where I'm at, there's issues I'm just like, okay, I can't speak on this because if I do, then this is going to turn into a much bigger issue as I've had it happen, where all of a sudden, wait a minute, why is this happening and this happening? I open my mouth. And so there's some issues where it's like, okay, I've got to be a little more subtle in how I do it. But yeah, it happens all over the place, unfortunately.
yeah, to me, that's not being kind. I mean,
No.
you should, for what I'm trying to run for school board, it shouldn't be a big deal as far as political wise, but this part I can tell you because it is public. If you go on YouTube and type in 2020 League of Women Voters, and then maybe put in St. Peter, Minnesota, Mankato, Minnesota behind it, you're gonna see a Mankato school board. It's not like a meeting because it was COVID time, but it was just these people running at that time telling us why they're gonna run. And this one guy slipped out something that I've always thought was true until I thought it was true, but now he made it more truer by saying, "The reason why I'm running for Mankato School Board is because I try to run for local government offices, failed, and I was told if I ran for school board, I would get a better chance at progressing my political career." And he said that it's in 2020, League of Women Voters. Google it, St. Peter, Minnesota. I think that's where they're out of, or Mankato, Minnesota. Somewhere in the middle there. It's like a 30-minute thing long. But it's like, you know what? Some of these people who are running for school board are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it to gain their political movement. They need to start
Yep.
somewhere. They don't give a crap about your kids. They're going to push policies. They're going to push rules to benefit their people so they can get them into a higher office, which I thought was kind of made up until I watched that video and like, this guy openly admitted it. I was
Right.
like,
Well,
he didn't
and
get
that
elected, by the way. He didn't get elected, but he
a
openly
lot of
admitted it.
if you look at a lot of politicians, local level, but even beyond, if you go back at some point, there's a lot of them that they started with school board, and that was their way of springboarding their political career. And that's not what that's supposed to be. You shouldn't be going for school board because you're like, oh, because now I want to get on city council, and then I want to become mayor, and then I want to go beyond that. It should be, I want to go on the school board because I want to help form policy and direction that's affects children positively within that within that the board's governance.
Yeah.
And if that's not what you're doing it for, then you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, which leads me into kind of my topic with you today is now I kind of see why parents are pulling their kids out of public schools going to homeschool? Because before I didn't quite understand it, but since you own like is Include Education, it's kind of like a homeschool, but it's not really because people homeschool their kids come to your business, right?
Right. So we're an education provider, and we provide programs to public schools as well. So we do for, we work with PTAs, we work with school districts and individual schools, but we also do homeschooling programs as well. So we offer our services for homeschool groups and campuses. I'll use it's informal type of campus, but and different, they're usually set up at different churches and so on. And we're a vendor with all of in our area, all of the local independent study, or informally known as homeschool charter schools as well.
Okay, so why do people leave public schools? I mean, the people that you talk to, why do they choose homeschool?
Well, so for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's and I think this was where a lot of people started more was uh, if their child had either a learning challenge or disability, special needs, and they were feeling like their child just wasn't getting what they needed out of that traditional school model, they decided to pull them out so that they could pursue the educational path that was right for their child, so they could get that support and still be able to follow their interests without feeling like they were unwanted within the school system. So and that resonated with me because I have two sons that are special needs. One's on the spectrum and the other one has ADHD. They're adults now, but in the school system, like they struggled hard, and we did the fight with the IEP meetings, and you feel like you're putting on your armor, getting ready to go to battle with the school every single time. And gosh, the gaslighting on that too. When you're in that
Really?
meeting, you start feeling like you're a bad parent because you're not medicating your child according to what they want. It's like, you're not a doctor. You can't tell me what medications to give my child. That's between us and his physician.
Exactly.
But I think more and more now we see like it's an increasing trend, like growing towards homeschooling as people are pulling out for bullying issues. Their children are being bullied, and the way the schools are responding to it is not adequate, at least in the parents' opinion. But also things to do, social issues and agendas, whether perceived or real. It's there, so there's a perception on the parents' part that uh, some of the things that may be getting taught in the schools are not sharing the same social values that they have at home, um, or inconsistent with their religious values, which religion shouldn't necessarily be in the public school, but it also shouldn't be, they shouldn't be teaching children something that's contrary to it either. You
Yeah.
know, it,
School
it,
should be kept to pretty basic reading, math, science, you know, and maybe some advanced courses, but that's about it. We need to get that strong foundation first, and then maybe
right.
have extracurricular topics that they can choose to go off to, but not making stuff like that mandatory.
Right. Well, a lot of it too is I think so many people have decided that personal lives need to be brought to the classroom, and it really shouldn't be. For example, I'm going to share with you here. It's not my students. Uh, I'm divorced. My students won't know that because I don't talk about my relationship status in the classroom. That's not a topic of discussion. That's not. It's not relevant to what we are teaching in the classroom. So why would I be talking about it? So an instructor's lifestyle choices, their family situation, any of those things have no bearing on the instruction in the classroom. So that's why I always stress with my programs and the others that I work with is that any instruction that we do is all going to be religiously, politically, and socially neutral, because we are
Yeah.
not there. That's not our job to do that. Our job is to teach the subject that they're in the class for. That's it. So if we're teaching a hands-on science class, we're teaching hands-on science. We're we're not
Exactly.
we're not talking about who I voted for president, for instance. And the students will ask, and I'll say, you know what? That's an interesting question, but That's not what we're here for today.
I
So
would
let's get
say
back
I'm
to
putting I was down for president. There's an option for who do you want to elect? Mr. James.
there you go.
That's who I'm voting for.
But
Vote for me for president.
I think so much of that's being pushed, and the bullying situation is. I think people are waking up to it more, so they're more aware of what's happening, and they're not. Less and less people are just taking the stance that that's part of life, and you just have, and that's part of the real world. It's not, and we all realize that. We wouldn't put up for that in the workplace. We wouldn't put up with that, in our personal lives as adults, but we're expecting children to. That's insane. It's asinine. We would never expect that if that happened in the workplace where we were getting bullied, or someone got attacked in the bathroom. Yeah, no, we're getting a lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
we're suing. We're calling the police. But it happens in the school, and we're like, well, you need to toughen up. What? How is that a thing? So I think it sets. I think those types of things I think are being more. People are being more aware of it now, and they're actually realizing, no, I don't want my child to go through that. That's not
Yeah,
how we toughen them up.
I think parents are aware of it. The school district is aware, but the school district doesn't want to admit to it because their anti-bullying policies for reporting are so unlikely to have. I mean, they're dumb. We'll put it that way. They're just easy. They're just dumb. They're hard to navigate. And like you addressed before, the teachers union. If people leave a school district, that affects the teachers union.
Yes.
And if we have a school reporting, we have low grades, we have bullying issues, well, that makes that school look bad.
Right.
We can't have that. So somehow the teachers union can kind of play a role into this. And you've had many stories about teachers unions yourself.
Yes.
What to say, what not to say.
Right. Well, because I mean, especially here in California, the teachers union here is one of the most powerful organizations in the country. Not just in the state of California, but in the whole country. And they've actively sought out legislation, successfully even, to limit the choices for parents. They've went after charter schools, in particular those independent study charter schools, which I know California is unique in that regard as far as the abilities. There's charter schools set up that actually help facilitate homeschooling, so that there is still some accountability for parents and stuff. This is a good thing, that helps guide them through a homeschooling journey rather than the parents just on their own trying to figure it out. So this is a good thing. Well, they try to limit that because the teachers with those charter schools and the vendors that supply some of the services are not in the union. So what benefits the union is to keep all the education being provided by union instructors, right? Which is not in the best interest of the children, certainly, and it's not. I would argue not even in the best interest of the teachers, because then that limits their choices as well. So they're stuck in that same environment. So the union is always going to operate in the best interest of the union. If the interest of the teachers just happen to coincide with that, fantastic. But that's not their first consideration. The children are a very distant consideration on that as well. So they will fight against those choices and options because they don't want the competition. So it goes to what you said, where they don't want some of these stories getting out. They suppress it, and of course, who else is part of this? Well, you got the teachers, you have administrators, unions, union members who are all in there. We've got to keep these stories quiet, put a lid on it, because if students start to leave, well, then you need less union teachers. It's basically them protecting their own best interests by trying to minimize these other options. And as they do that, they become more powerful. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating thing that they're trying for. They're vying for their own existence. I think myself, there's some professions out there that we shouldn't. Obviously, everybody needs to earn a living, but we should be doing where it's more than just money. It's more than just a career. It's a calling. And I believe that teaching is one of those things. And so anybody getting into education should be doing it for with the best interest of the students in mind first. That should be first and foremost. And I think we have too many that's not where they're at, or they've forgotten that and they've forgotten to take that into consideration because the unions in particular, and I think a lot more teachers feel the way I do, but a lot more afraid to speak out or don't know that they can because they might get backlash from the union and the other union teachers who haven't realized this themselves. So they don't do it, but more of them should be asking, why are we not trying to make our public school the better choice rather than just trying to make it the only choice?
I think a lot of that is because these people who sit on the board or on these unions, like I said, they have different goals for themselves. They need to please the other people. Your
Yep.
kids are not they're there for. They have a political goal. They want to become senator, governor, maybe president, who knows. That's their goal. They're going to please those people who can get them there, not your kids. Your kids don't matter. You can go on I posted a few videos on my school board page and I took them down since I got gaslighted. And I'm going to put them back up closer to election time because some of the stuff that say in public, if you live in my area, you can Google Mankato School Board and watch all the video replays. And I'm sure maybe someday they may just take them down because the stuff that they said is horrible. But there is a assistant principal said, in the school board, I'm a 35-year-old female, white female. Sorry. I'm a 35-year-old white female who cannot relate to a non-white kid. I'm like, what does that even mean? I work with diverse kids all the time in my business.
Yeah.
Why would you, first of all, why would you say that in public? And if that's how you really feel, why are you working with kids? Because you're putting your race over someone else's race.
You're in the wrong field then. Exactly. Yeah.
But they say this in public, and I mean it's recorded publicly, but people don't know that they can find this video out. So my past 6 months, I've been the idea of running for school board happened like in December or November last year. So I've been looking at all these school board meeting videos, and at first I wasn't going to run because like there's just too much crap. But then I saw the bullying aspect of it. We need to treat this race of people better than we treat this race. Who cares about this race can't pass reading? This race that we're worried about. I was like, that's straight up bullying. You can't do that. And if you think I'm lying, you follow Tim Flynn from Mankato School Board. You'll see it coming up here this fall. I was like, okay. And then I talked to some of my other people, and it's like, Tim, if you want to really make a change with kids, you should run for school board. And that's when I decided I was going to run for school board. Because actually, I was afraid to touch all of this because I'm a small business owner. But I'm like, now that I saw it, you can't just not sit back and let it happen. Because I teach kids all the time. If you see something wrong, you step up. If you see a kid getting picked on in the lunchroom, are you going to step back and let that kid get picked on? Or are you going to go find some help? You can go find some help. Now, as an adult, if I see something going on in the school system, how I understand it, should I just sit back and say, oh, because obviously if you go to the help, I can't go higher than the school board. They are the highest, even though the school board works for me right now. I'm a citizen. They work for me. They don't care about me. They say it out public. We care about this group of races. We don't care about this group. And they don't say it like that, but if you watch these videos I'm gonna put together, you'll see it. And that assistant principal who said she cannot relate to non-white kids. And I'm talking about like 12-year-olds, 12-year-old kids. These are young kids. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. This needs to be. I don't know who put that mindset into your head. Some of the school board members, I think, I don't know if they meant that real, but this one school board meeting, they were drilling the principal of the school because he did not put a black door with a black student, and he got drilled for that. They go, you should be putting people who look like them if you want to improve your grades. It's like,
So
what?
segregate. That's
That's what they're.
yeah.
No, it's called
That's
diversity. It's called diversity. That's
but
segregation.
it's
It's called diversity. Yeah.
but it's not. It's like they call it what it's like. I mean, almost like that. That's gaslighting right there. We're gonna we're gonna do the opposite of diversity, but we're gonna call it diversity. And if you argue with it, then you're arguing against diversity. It it's a it's a way to shut down the discussion at that point, because if you say this is wrong, well, so you don't like diversity. Well, no, I like diversity. What you're saying is not diverse. You're talking about separating someone by the color of their skin. So they have, so if someone is this, their skin is this color, they have to have the same color mentor. That's not diversity. That's the
Exactly.
opposite. And so
So
it's that's segregation right there. But they'll
yeah,
call it diversity. But I would argue, I or venture to guess, I guess it would be more appropriate. I would venture to guess that a lot of these officials that are saying that don't even necessarily believe it. It just happens to be the talking points or the views they think will get them more votes and get them more support, rather than
yeah,
actually speaking what they truly believe and what and right or wrong. They they will say what they need, what they think they need to say to please a certain demographic or certain number of voters, what they think their supporters, whatever it is, that they will be able to continue advancing their career.
yeah. What bothers me is some people in the school board who I know are very good people, because the people who help elect that person to get to school board are not working with me. They're helping get me in the school board. And this person did not speak up. And I was so bummed out by that, because there's no way this person believes a word that your other school board member just said. I thought the whole point of school board is to have different viewpoints. You don't have to agree. But the fact that you don't speak up and say, hey, this is not right, that never happened.
Mhm.
You just let, first of all, they let that principal got drilled pretty much for being racist, which he's not. I mean, you can see his legs shake because the camera's so far back. You can see him just sitting there shaking his legs. I mean, this guy was straight up nervous. And then his AP next to him throws out this ridiculous comment that she can't relate to kids. I'm just like, no, no. Okay, I'm going to run for school board now. Now, that's why I think I'm being starting to get some attack, because I'm going to bring this stuff to light. Because my belief is, in order to fix something, to first you have to admit that there's a problem so you can fix it. If you can't admit there's a problem, you can't fix anything. If the
Yeah.
schools don't think bullying is an issue, they're not going to fix it, because they don't get the reports in. Now, the reports from Mankato is you can verbally complain about bullying all you want. It's not an official bullying complaint. Now, you do have to follow their policies and procedures. That's just the way it is. They wrote it. You have to follow it too. So if you don't go on their website, dig through a bunch of files and paper and find that form, and you don't fill that out, turn that in, then it's not, they never got a bullying complaint at all. You can complain about it to their faces. It's not a complaint. And that states right in their policies. I even put their policy in my intro to running for school board video, that all verbal complaints are complaints. They're not reports of bullying.
Wow. But see, well, as a parent, you think I've reported this. That's in your mind. Okay, I've verbalized this. They've verbally acknowledged it. That's a report, but it's not. I mean, I mean, a normal person would think, of course, that's reporting it, but they're not considering it a report. And it's funny too, because a lot of if you do a poll of teachers and you ask what their complaints are, you're going to have they're going to sit there and they're going to complain about pay. That's always there. Even though I would argue it's not as bad as what they paint that out to be. However, that's a separate issue. But they will also say that it's being able to manage their classroom because of extreme behaviors in the classroom, and they're not allowed to do anything when they're complaining about this. Have you ever seen anything from the school union, from any of the teachers unions that are trying to address that situation? They're not,
You know?
because if you did, that automatically means you must have alternatives. So they don't want the alternatives. So it runs counter to what the union wants. So if you have a child that's in there and is bullying other children, is always uh, a disturbance in the class, is those types of things. Well, there's limits to what the teacher can do. And a teacher could even be in a situation where they may even be physically afraid of the student. Well, there's limits to what they can even do, and the student has to stay in the class, and that's now all the students are suffering because of that. So if the union was actually representing the teachers, wouldn't we have some legislation to that effect that would say, look, we need there needs to be other places for these kids to go, and if they really are going to be those extreme behaviors and where they're violent, causing harm physically or emotionally, mentally to other children, we can't have them in the classroom. We need to find something else to help them so maybe they can try again. But in the meantime, we can't sacrifice the 29 other students in this class for one. But that means you have to allow other programs to be out there. You have to allow alternatives. You have to allow parents to seek out the best educational options for their child, even if it's not a union classroom. And that's why the unions, they don't support that, even though that is that complaint is way up here. If you poll any teacher, that's one of the things they complain about. My programs, I don't have that issue because I can actually have a zero tolerance policy on that. In my classes, if a student is bullies, if it's verbal, they get a warning.
Yeah.
A warning. After that, the parent's called. The parent has to come in right then and pick up their child. And depending on the level, they may get another chance to come in. But for that day, parent had to come immediately and pick them up. Right? Then if they physically strike another child, then they're out.
Wow.
They don't come back. Because we can't do that. We can't have some of our students feeling afraid that they may be attacked or face violence in the classroom. No.
Are these policies clear in your are these steps in a clear outline on your anti-bullying policies? Because our anti-bullying policy is like, well, we got to take a look at this, we got to take a look at that. I mean, they don't have any steps at all. It's just all push.
No, we have it in our terms and conditions. So when they enroll in the programs, it's like, look, under these circumstances, may not be able to return. And we have it in there that if a parent is called for any reason, they don't have to agree. Any reason, and we're saying they have to pick up their child right now, they must come pick up their child right now. We'll discuss the situation later, but they have to come pick them up, and then we'll have a discussion about it. But we're not going to do that in front of the other students and everything. Like, we'll have that as more private discussion. But there's been not often, because when you make those rules that clear and they understand the consequences, you don't have to go that far very often. But we have had a couple instances where, unfortunately, student wasn't allowed to return, and there were students like, I like these students, like, oh, I feel so bad they can't come back. But we have a policy for a reason. And if we don't abide by it, then it means nothing. So when schools are saying, oh, there's a zero tolerance, there's not. We all know that there's not a zero tolerance. When you have a situation where a student is bullying another, and finally the bullied student stands up for him or herself, or a student stands up for another child that's getting bullied, and they're the ones that seemingly at least get in more trouble than the bully did. What kind of lesson are we sending out there?
That happens all the time.
We've encouraged the bully. We've given him permission. We've encouraged the bullying then, because there was no consequence.
Yeah, and it goes back to this sweet old lady who started this whole gaslighting thing with. First of all, I didn't know it was gaslighting until the very end. I got the government official on me. didn't anyone go after her? Hey, that wasn't nice. You sent some really nice stuff to Tim. You said you're going to handle it. Why did you go an hour later and smear his name saying he doesn't look? I mean, but it's my fault for sticking up for myself, and that's just Sally. That's just how
Right.
the schools see as well. We had a mom from a local school here in town. Child is non-binary. This boy punched her in the stomach, and he said, "I want you to scream like a girl now." And she wouldn't do it. So he punched her again. So she went to go look for help on the playground at recess. She couldn't find anyone to help her out. The boy followed her. She turned around and round kicked him in the face. Started bawling and
Good for
crying,
her.
crying. She gets talked to. She gets in trouble. She was told she handled that situation wrong. The school wanted my school that I'm trying to end bullying wanted her to apologize to that boy that she round kicked in the face.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's just wrong. That is not right. Why is she in trouble when the boy started it and to scream but I
That's
maybe I don't know. I feel like schools are trying to protect certain people. I'm sure with you and the teachers union, I know you have a lot of stories with the teachers unions about censorship. I don't know how much stuff they censor. You probably know that the public doesn't know.
yeah. I mean,
To
there's a lot, and that they won't acknowledge. Oh, but talking about that situation with that bullying, my oldest son experienced that when he was in middle school. 'Cause like I said, he's on the spectrum, so and he has a tic disorder, so it's very very visual, right? So he's got hand movements and those tics there, and so he was being bullied, and bus was dropping him off, and he basically got attacked right off the school bus. Bus driver just drives away. It's happening right
jeez,
there. Bus driver just like, I'm out, takes off. And another kid who is a much bigger kid went over and just kind of pushed them off and said, leave them alone. Didn't strike them, just basically kind of pulled them off and just stood in between my son and these bullies the next day. And I just knew this was going to happen. So I told him, I said, like, I knew they were going to meet. So they were going to meet with, if it was vice principal, now whoever it was at the school. I knew everybody was going to be getting together because we complained. And I told him, I said, afterwards, I want you to go to the bathroom and call me because I want to know what was discussed. And sure enough, in there, the student that stood up for my son was made to apologize to everybody else for getting involved. And he was told that that he was wrong. He never should have done that. And he was told on it, chastised in front of the bullies. I'm like, you just told them that what they did was okay, and no one's allowed to stop them. Like you just gave them permission. So when my son called me and told me that, I said, I said, go be ready to get your stuff. I said, because they're gonna call you to the office,
yeah,
bring everything with you. So that way he didn't have to go back again. I went in and talked to him and I said, I want to know what's going on. They did not want to tell me anything. They wouldn't even tell me what was discussed. And so with my son sitting there, I said, so it so I turned to him, I said, is this what happened? He said, yes. And I turned to him, well, we can't. I said, I don't need you to because he's just telling me right now. And we went through exactly everything that happened. They didn't deny any of it. They just wouldn't confirm it either. And I
yeah,
said, is the bully still here today? Well, we can't tell you that. Turned to him, I said, is he still here today? Yes. I said, if he's still here, I said, and after what you did, you have absolutely no interest in protecting my son at all. So we're leaving. I said, he's not going to school here anymore. You can't do that. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't ask your permission. I said, we're leaving and we're not coming, and he's not coming back. Like, he is no longer a student of yours. We're out. And that was an interesting conversation with his mom at the time as we got home. And she says, what are you guys doing here? I said, yeah, he doesn't go to school there anymore. So, okay. I mean, she agreed, what we kind of explained the
yeah.
situation, but the school they didn't want to be accountable at all. We tell everybody just to not get involved because if you have kids standing up for others, the situation becomes bigger. You have more people involved. It's more likely to get noticed. So you got to sweep it under the rug, because if no one else gets involved, you can kind of blame it on the one getting bullied, because that's one student. And many times on the other side, when you're talking about the bullies, a lot of times it's more than one.
Yeah.
So it's easier, let's just shut up this one rather than going after the group, and it becomes a bigger situation.
It's I've heard a story kind of like that from one of our episodes. Daniel Cameron, he's a stunt person out in Hollywood. His whole life, he always thought he's a tall guy. He always stuck up for the little people, but he got labeled since elementary school as a bad kid. And he didn't start the fights, but he would use his height to protect the little kids who were getting picked on. The school didn't see it. He got labeled a bad kid, went through like the trauma, psychological trauma he had to go through school. And even in the interview, you can still tell that bugs him to this day. That that's just that's
Uh,
just how schools are. It's sadly that's just I guess say some schools are, because not all schools are probably like this.
True.
There are some schools who are looking out for their own interest. Mr. James, we're wrapping up on getting close to our time here. Any final thoughts on what parents can do if they feel like the school is not for their as not representing their kid as well as they should be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, first, I want to say that, in all this, obviously, we're talking about specific instances and stuff, and uh, I don't think either one of us is implying that all teachers feel this way, all school officials,
Correct.
and that they're all a problem. There's just is a problem. We need to address that problem, so the ones that are doing the right thing can actually do what they need to do.
Yeah.
So, we're, and I know you feel the same way. So, I know it sounds like we're bagging on public schools and public school teachers and all the officials. We're not. We're speaking about the ones that are that way. So that way, I don't want people to misunderstand that. A very pro teacher. I just think actually, I think they're getting the short end of the stick just as much as some of the students are. But for parents that are looking for alternatives, there are so many options out there. And I look back now, like I said, my sons are adults now. I had no idea back then what options there were. And I feel horrible now that I didn't know about any of these things that are available. There's so many resources for parents if they want to homeschool. There's so many options, support out there, homeschooling groups and stuff. But there's also charter schools that will help. I don't know how it works in every state. Every state's a little bit different, but I know in California in particular, there are charter schools that they can enroll in that actually have like active resources, and so they're not feeling like they do it alone. Homeschooling is not about mom sitting at the dining room table trying to teach every single subject herself, and ready to pull her hair out because she's getting frustrated. That's not what it's about. There's so many resources. It's about finding the right resources for your child. Doesn't mean that you are the one teaching every subject, and I think a lot of people misunderstand that. But to that point as well, I've heard a lot of people say in the past, like, well, I don't feel confident in teaching these subjects, and so I should send them to a regular school because I don't feel like I know them well enough. And I always counter with this, if you were I don't know if you learned to cook from your mom or your grandmother, maybe, or someone in your family, and if they brought you into the kitchen and they showed you how to bake a cake, right? You follow this recipe and you bake a cake. Later, the next day, a week later, a year later, 10, 20 years later, could you go in the kitchen and show your children how to bake a cake? Sure,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So if school system left you feeling so inadequate that you don't feel like you could teach your second grader simple math, why in the world would you send your second grader to the very same system that left you feeling so inadequate?
Exactly.
So I think parents need to have that confidence. They can do it. There's resources out there for where you don't feel as confident. Get someone to help. They're out there.
Yes, and we've actually had some guests on this show who their kids go to public schools, and they have great public schools out there. And
Yes.
one of the reasons why is because their policies are clear and they stick to it. They're easy to follow. You understand them. Like as far as bullying, this one public school that Samantha Clayton told me, they don't have a bullying issue because they have a policy in place. It's clear and they follow it.
That's
They
it.
don't have a bullying issue. And it's a public school. Like, okay, so there are schools out there that can do this. Unfortunately, the school that I'm trying to work into, like I'm trying to become a school board member in the same school district that bullied the hell out of me. And teachers saw it, they didn't stick up for me, you
Oh,
know. So if I get elected, it's like a full circle for me. I get to fix hopefully I get to fix things depending if I get people on my side. But if people don't, I don't know. Whole other subject. You know, that's my goal. I've seen what's going on in my own school system. I want to change it because I work with these kids after school. That's what, and I understand what they're going through. James, thank you so much for coming on again. I've got to say, you also own Valley Wrestling Championships.
Valley Wrestling Connection, VWC.
Connection. Okay.
Yeah. And yep, we do family-friendly professional wrestling entertainment. I started that just because as a dad myself and a single dad now, and my two daughters are younger, and I wanted to do something, put something out there for dads to do with the kids. Go out there, forget about real life for a while. Just go out, enjoy a fun show. We keep it family friendly. Cheer for the good guys, boo the bad guys. Get excited. In those moments, everything else slips away. You're just bonding with your family, having fun, and you don't have to worry about the real world for a little bit. It allows you
Yes.
to escape and just have fun and create memories with the kids. And so that's why I started that. And it was, I don't know, kind of a dream of mine. And I'm like kind of getting to live out a little bit.
I'm a dad of all girls, and my 5-year-old Georgia, we like to go to wrestling events, and we love the VFW wrestling events because they're small, they're private, and the wrestlers interact with the kids.
Absolutely.
And kids just love it. Even the bad guys go interact with the kids, and my daughter just feeds off of it. She loves it.
Absolutely.
And I think she also loves seeing the women wrestle because the women can do just as much as the guys can do, and sometimes some of these women are ruthless too.
They are. Well, it's
She just loves it.
It shows it. My daughters, they absolutely love it. If you haven't been to an independent wrestling show, go. But
Yes.
with the caveat, when you go, throw yourself into it. Cheer for the good guys, boo for the bad guys. Get into it. You will have an amazing time. My daughters loved it, and I knew it was for them. We went to a show. It was at a VFW, actually.
Yep.
And led me to doing this myself. But it was the bad guy came out. I'm going to throw his name out there. Honest John. He came out, and boy, did he tick off my daughter. She was so upset with him. And after the show, though, she got it. She wanted, out of all the wrestlers that were there, she wanted his picture. He entertained her. She understood afterwards that's not really him. He's playing a part, and she loved it. She loved to like be angry at him in that moment and boo him and everything. It was so much fun for her. It allowed her to escape, and stuff. And so it's a fun way to go. So check out your independent wrestling promotion in your area, all the listeners out there.
Yes. And I want to say thank you again, Mr. James, for coming on. If people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
Go to our website. You can follow our social media as well. So Facebook, Include Education, one E in the middle. So it's the word include, education together with only one E. And if you want to check out Valley Wrestling Connection, we're Valley Wrestling Connection on social media as well. Facebook, Instagram for both of those. Give us a follow.
All right. Thanks again, Mr. James.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And for myself, you can always find us at our very own website, which is www.breakingbullying.com. You can also reach out to us at our email address. If you have a story of your own bullying to share, or for whatever reason you want to get a hold of us, our email address is breakbullyinghere@gmail.com. Now, if you're a victim of bullying and you don't know where to turn, there is online resources to help you. The first is the government's very own anti-bullying website, and the address is www.stopbullying.gov. And other online resource is www.pacer.org/bullying. Now, If you have had thoughts of suicide or of self-harm, we implore you to stop. Reach out to the National Suicide Hotline. That number is very simple. It's 988. I'm Tim Flynn, and thank you for listening, and we will be back next week to continue the conversation to break the silence on bullying.